Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. As we sit and chat today, a man is waiting to go on trial for murder. Massachusetts prosecutors allege that this was not a crime of passion, as the defendant wants everyone to believe, but a cold and calculated plan by a mastermind con artist to protect his freedom and his fortune. Today we are taking a walk through the world of fine art and fine art fraud, and we're talking about one of the most well-known artists in modern history, Andy Warhol. What does this famous artist and his paintings have to do with a 2023 murder? Well, it's a hell of a story, and one that does not yet have an end in sight. This is the story of Brian Walshe and the murder of Anna Walsh, the art of murder. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Our story begins in 2016. An art buyer was browsing eBay, hoping to find what every vintage and art eBay customer is looking for, unknown treasure. As this buyer is looking through some art catalogs, he is shocked to discover two Andy Warhol paintings for sale on eBay. The paintings were two of Andy Warhol's Shadows, which is a series of untitled abstract canvas paintings from 1978. The original listing price for the paintings was $100,000. The eBay seller selling this artistic treasure was Brian Walshe. He included a picture of an invoice for the two Warhol shadow paintings with Warhol Foundation numbers and a purchase price of $240,000. The Warhol Foundation numbers prove that the pieces are authentic. The buyer believed that the paintings were authentic. The seller had the Warhol Foundation certification proving they were real. Between November 3rd and 5th, 2016, the buyer arranged to purchase the artwork outside of eBay for $80,000. This saves all the fees that eBay takes when you use that platform to sell something. It's of course against the platform rules, but people do it all the time. The buyer prepared a cashier's check for $80,000 and deposited it that day into one of Brian Walsh's accounts. Over the next few days, Brian Walsh withdrew $33,400 from that same account. Days later, on November 8th, 2016, the buyer, who now had the paintings, decided to take a closer look at them, and he removed them from their frames. There was no Warhol Foundation authentication stamps on the backs of the paintings, and the buyer immediately knew he'd been conned. The buyer also saw that the canvases and the staples in the canvases looked new. When he compared the paintings to the photographs from the eBay listing, he could tell they were not identical. He knew these were not real Andy Warhol paintings. The buyer began trying to contact Brian Walsh, but Brian did not respond at first. The buyer became more and more insistent, threatening to get the police involved. So finally, Brian Walsh picked up his phone. He told the buyer that he too had been conned, and then he made excuses for the delay in refunding the buyer's money. Brian Walsh's story is that he was visiting a friend in South Korea around 2011. This friend was an artist who would often duplicate famous paintings, and he had these two authentic Warhol shadow paintings as well. Brian Walsh told his friend that he could sell the paintings for a good price. Now, at some point, Brian Walsh also got a hold of some original Warhol shadow paintings. Legitimately, Walsh obtained genuine shadow paintings from a college classmate, but instead of selling those, he had fakes made using the originals as inspiration. They were poorly forged and freshly painted. Brian created fraudulent authentication labels, altered provenance paperwork, and even applied fake Andy Warhol Foundation stamps to the back. The real paintings were then sold to buyers out of the country and have never been recovered by the government. The paintings belong to the Warhol collection, and they've effectively now been stolen. Brian Walsh was arrested for his part in the scheme. In April of 2021, the 49-year-old was sentenced to 37 months in prison and 3 years of supervised release. Brian was also ordered to pay restitution of $475,000. He pled guilty to 1 count each of wire fraud, interstate transportation for a scheme to defraud, and unlawful monetary transaction. And this wasn't the only time he'd done this. Brian Walsh had entered the high-stakes world of fine art fraud. His prey? Collectors hungry for Andy Warhol originals. Walsh claimed to have 2 authentic Shadow series paintings, but the truth was more smoke than shadow. One French buyer wired $80,000 for the pair of paintings. The paintings arrived late and suspicious. The canvases were mounted on newer wood. The paint was oddly fresh. They were missing the correct documentation and lacked the UV-stamped authenticity seals. Brian then ghosted the buyers. They never got their money back. Now, Brian Walsh had been married to Anne Lubisic since around 2015. Brian was born in 1975 or 1976, and Anna was born in Serbia in 1983. She was a French speaker. Together, they had 3 sons. When Brian began to get into trouble for these instances of art fraud, Anna was very concerned. She told close friends of the family she was worried Brian was going to go to prison and she would be left destitute. How would she provide for her sons? What was she going to do? Brian and Anna's relationship began to feel strained. There was tension in the marriage, and there was, of course, a lot of stress. Anytime someone is looking at prison time, there's going to be major stress in the marriage or the relationship. People who knew the couple were also concerned. Friends knew things were not going well for the Walshes, but no one could have known, that things were about to get much, much worse. In the early morning hours of the new year, Anna and Brian Walsh were ringing in the new year at dinner with friends in their neighborhood. The group parted ways after midnight, and the Walshes returned home. There, Brian packed an overnight bag and flew to Washington, D.C. for a work emergency. Anna made a series of phone calls around 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. First, she called her mother, then her sister, and finally her friend, who had also been the maid of honor at her wedding. None of the women picked up the phone. It was late. 39-year-old Anna Walsh left her home in Cohasset between 4 and 5 a.m. on New Year's Day. That's according to the security system at the house. 2 days went by and there was no sign of Anna. After Anna left her house, people stopped hearing from her. 2 days went by and there was no sign of Anna. The last thing she'd done is make those phone calls after dinner on New Year's Day, early in the morning. On January 4th, Tishman Spire, Anna's employer, and Brian Walsh, her husband, reported Anna Walsh missing. Brian told the police that Anna had left the house around 4 a.m. for a meeting on January 1st that had been moved up from the 3rd. Police could not confirm whether or not Anna had taken a flight, and they couldn't find out whether or not she'd taken a car to the airport. What they did find is that she had previously booked a flight for January 3rd, but she never boarded that flight. There was something else. Neither Anna's credit cards or her debit cards had been used since January 1st. Brian Walsh allowed the police to go into their home and investigate. In the basement of the Walsh home, cops found human blood. They also found a damaged and blood-stained knife. The cops then began to track Brian Walsh's movements. They discovered that he purchased $450 worth of cleaning supplies, including mops, buckets, and tarps, the day after Anna was last seen. As some officers were looking into Brian, others were investigating Anna's life. What they found was telling. Anna Walsh was having an affair. She'd been seeing a man in Washington, D.C. for months. People close to Anna did not know if Brian was suspicious or not. Anna's lover has not yet been publicly named, but in unsealed documents, he states that he saw Anna frequently during her time spent working as a real estate executive in D.C., and that their relationship had recently become more serious. I'm sure we will find out who this man is at trial. Anna Walsh was planning to leave her husband Brian. She and her boyfriend even spent Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve together. They had plans to celebrate the new year on January 4th after Anna got back to DC, but that never happened. She vanished before she could make it back to her lover. A friend of Anna's came forward, Elisa Kirby. She confirmed what the police suspected. The marriage of the Walshes was strained and had been ever since Brian was convicted for art fraud. Alyssa, Anna's friend, told the police that Anna was planning to move their 3 young kids with her to Washington, D.C. and start her life over with her new boyfriend. For days, police, friends, and family searched for Anna Walsh. They were all hoping that she'd just taken off for a few days. Perhaps the stress was getting to her and she just needed to get away from it all. But as the week wore on, hope began to dwindle, and when Anna's family and friends learned of what the police had found in the investigation, they knew Anna was never coming home. Brian Walsh is arrested and taken into custody, charged with misleading the police in the investigation into his wife's disappearance. Brian was claiming that when his wife disappeared, he'd been at the local CVS and then at Whole Foods grabbing some things he needed. Well, the police looked on the surveillance cameras and could not verify any of this. Footage from both stores was viewed. Brian Walsh wasn't in either of the stores when he said he was. He's using his credit cards to buy cleaning supplies, and he's saying he was in stores that he wasn't in. Do people not realize that it's 2023 at this point? Brian was taken before a judge for his initial appearance. He pled not guilty. The prosecutor alleged that Brian had not gone to CVS or Whole Foods, but instead had gone to Home Depot in Rockland, Massachusetts on January 2nd, where he spent that $450 on cleaning supplies. Brian Walsh was able to bond out of jail on this interference of an investigation charge, but he wasn't out for long. On January 18th, Brian was arrested again. This time he was charged with murder and disinterring a body without authority. Prosecutors alleged that Brian Walsh attacked Anna in the basement of their home. The attorneys say forensic science backs up this allegation, that there is proof of a struggle, a fight, and a murder at the Walsh home. Prosecutors say that Brian beat Anna to death, and then he took power tools and dismembered her body before disposing of her body parts. What proof do they have? Well, it's pretty bad. The police had gone through Brian Walsh's computer and his tablets. Brian had performed several very telling and damning Google searches. He'd searched the following terms: how long before a body starts to smell? Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. Can you be charged with murder without a body? I mean, Brian, dude, you might as well have just killed her on camera and posted it on your social media. I am honestly shocked that in this day and age, people are so stupid as to Google things like that after committing a murder. I mean, I'm glad they are, but I think a few more cases like this and people won't be doing it anymore. But I have been known to overestimate people's intelligence. Something else has since come out to the public. Cops found trash bags full of items belonging to Anna. With her personal items, police found a hacksaw and blood-stained materials. Where were those trash bags found? In dumpsters along the route Brian Walsh takes back and forth to work every day. And to me, this also says they've got Brian on surveillance footage dumping the bags, the body parts, and Anna's personal items. If these dumpsters are along the roads that Brian takes every day, we all know there are going to be surveillance cameras pointed at least some of those dumpsters. And I'm sure it's going to come out that Brian is on camera doing some dumping. Brian Walsh is currently being held in jail without bail for the murder of Anna, his wife. There have been some fiery exchanges as of late as the attorneys for both sides begin to set the foundation for trial. There's a lot of legal process that needs to take place in order to prepare for that trial. Right now, the murder trial is set to begin in October, so just a few months from now.
Attorneys for Brian Walsh are asking for his murder charges to be dismissed.
The Cohasset man is accused of killing his wife and dismembering her body. Anna Walsh's body, though, has never been found. NBC 10's John Maroney joining us live from Superior Court in Plymouth with the latest developments.
JC, the trial is set to begin in the fall, but the defense is moving to shake things up before it even gets started.
October, TikTok, it's coming. So Figure out what your theories are going to be.
A warning from Judge Diane Frenier, even as she considers dismissing murder charges against 48-year-old Brian Walsh, accused of killing his wife, Anna.
You're asking me to dismiss it in so much as it charges cruel and atrocious.
Prosecutors say Walsh killed his 39-year-old spouse because she was looking to leave him after developing a relationship with another man in Washington, D.C. The defense wants the murder charges thrown out, saying testimony the grand jury considered to indict Walsh was insufficient to establish premeditation or extreme atrocity and cruelty.
If they develop evidence post-grand jury of extreme atrocity and cruelty, they can't just decide, oh, now we have evidence of it, we can try them on that. They have to go to the grand jury and get an indictment.
The court should not eliminate any theory of first-degree murder, because here the grand jury did have probable cause to find that the defendant committed a premeditated murder with the intent to kill.
Prosecutors say Walsh conducted online searches of how to dispose of a body after his wife's death, not to mention a generous life insurance policy in her name. Here's what the judge told the defense about its motion.
This is where I go off script, and it's never good. Even if I allowed your motion or I denied your motion and said, oh no, they can go forward on both theories. As a strategic matter, they got to start thinking, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by doing so? Because from what I've seen, it's pretty thin.
Now, the judge did take that motion to dismiss under advisement. There is another pretrial conference that is set for next week. We're live in Plymouth. John Maroney, NBC 10 Boston.
After that exchange, the judge announced that she might have a conflict of interest and she might need to be replaced.
More breaking news tonight. The judge in the Brian Walsh case disclosing a potential conflict that she has regarding a new member of the prosecution's team.
The Commonwealth has chosen attorney Michael Sullivan to represent them in connection with their dealings with the United States Attorney's Office. And that choice of an attorney is a mentor of mine and a friend of mine.
Well, the judge says she's confident she can remain objective, but wanted to leave the final decision on whether to get a new judge up to the parties involved.
This is going to be a very interesting trial to watch. I wanted to bring you up to speed so that you're informed as to where this stands right now. Then we can watch the trial together and come back and talk about it afterwards. I do think there are going to be some things that come out at the trial for the first time. We've already seen Brian's attorneys arguing over his cell phone records being brought in as evidence. If they're already fighting to keep out his cell phone records, there is definitely something they're trying to hide. But the thing I really hope comes out at trial is the location of Anna's body, her body parts. This is the mother of 3 children. She is a daughter, a sister, a friend, and those who love Anna have every right to know where she is and to bury her and honor her in the manner of their choosing. I don't have very high opinions of Brian Walsh. I think this guy is a con artist and a creep who would do pretty much anything for money and to get his way. But if he's got even a scintilla of decency for the sake of his own children, I hope he leads authorities to Anna's remains. I will keep you posted as this story progresses, and we will come back at a later date to discuss the trial. Until then, I want to send love to Anna's friends and family members. Our thoughts are with you at this difficult time. We are all hoping for justice for Anna. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I sure appreciate you. You can listen to my podcast on Apple and Spotify. I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. And as always, I want to give a special thank you to my patrons and remind you that if you join Patreon, you will get some bonus content there that you can't see or hear anywhere else. I hope you're doing well and enjoying the summer. I think about you guys and I enjoy speaking with you in the comments. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.